Late at night at Nashville Memorial Hospital, one of the most modern and luxurious medical facilities in the city. Outside, the piercing wail of an ambulance siren ripped through the quiet darkness, shrill enough to raise goosebumps. A stretcher was rushed into the emergency room. On it lay a young woman, her face drained of all color as if the blood had been pulled from her veins. Her tailored designer suit was still soaked with streaks of red that hadn't yet dried. Cassandra Rowland, 35-year-old CEO of Rowland Tech, one of the most powerful faces in Nashville, now hovered on the fragile line between life and death. Cassandra gripped the nurse's hand, her voice breaking as though forced out of a chest burning with pain. "Please, just make it fast. I don't want to feel the pain anymore." No doctor had arrived yet. Only one man burst in. A man in an old worn security jacket, his eyes sharp yet steady. "What happened?" he asked urgently. "Car accident," the nurse replied, her voice trembling noticeably. The man didn't hesitate. He took off his security jacket and gently draped it over Cassandra. His voice was low, warm, and impossibly steady. "You're going to be all right. I promise." As he held her hand, the overhead lights fell across his wrist, revealing rows of tattooed numbers, codes carried only by military medics. Cassandra saw them. Her eyes widened, not only in fear, but because she recognized something she thought she had buried long ago. His name was Nathaniel Carver, 38 years old, single father, night shift security guard at Nashville Memorial. This is the story of a fateful night, of a man quietly forgotten in the hospital corridors, and of a cold, unyielding CEO who would soon learn the most expensive lesson of her life. If you enjoy emotional and unexpected stories like this, make sure to subscribe so you won't miss the ones we publish every day. And the question is, where had Cassandra met Nathaniel Carver before? And why did that single glance leave her so shaken? 9:30 p.m. Nate Carver walked into Nashville Memorial Hospital with a worn-out backpack and a cheap cup of coffee he had grabbed from a convenience store. Beside him was an 8-year-old girl with a ponytail and a tiny bunny-shaped backpack. "Sadie Carver. Daddy's going to work now, sweetheart. Sit here and do your homework, okay? Don't wander around." Sadie nodded obediently, opened her math notebook, her little legs swinging beneath the chair. She was used to this. Every night while her father worked the shift, Sadie stayed in the hospital cafeteria, doing homework, drawing pictures, sometimes falling asleep on the table to the soft hum of the vending machines. No one knew Nate's story, but if you looked closely, if you really paid attention, you would see it. The cheap watch on his wrist, its glass chipped with a thin crack like an old wound that never fully healed. The faded combat boots, the same pair that carried him through 3 deployments in the Middle East, now worn down at the soles, yet still the boots he wore every single night. And most of all the way he looked at people. Not the gaze of an ordinary security guard, but the eyes of someone who had witnessed far too much death, far too much pain to be afraid of anything anymore. 5 years earlier, Nathaniel Carver had been a combat medic in the United States Army. He had completed 3 deployments, saved over 40 fellow soldiers, and had been awarded the Silver Cross for bravery. Then one night in Kandahar, Afghanistan, his phone rang. A call from Nashville. His wife, Emma Carver, had died in a car accident. A truck had lost control and slammed directly into her car on her way home from work. Emma died instantly. Sadie, only 3 years old at the time, had been with a neighbor. Nate requested to return home immediately. When he lifted Sadie into his arms, the child looked up at him with round, innocent eyes and asked, "Daddy, where did Mommy go?" Nate couldn't answer. He just held his little girl tight, letting his tears fall into her soft hair. From that moment on, he never went back to the battlefield. His fellow soldiers begged him, "You're the best combat medic in the unit, Nate. You save people's lives." He only shook his head. "I've already lost one person. I can't lose another. Nate needed a stable job, a job that didn't require travel, a job that allowed him to be with City every single day. So, he chose night shift security. $15 an hour, working from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. No full insurance, no bonuses, no recognition, but enough to raise his daughter. Enough for City to have a proper breakfast every morning. Enough to pay the rent for a one-bedroom apartment on the outskirts of Nashville, where City slept in the bed, and Nate took the old sagging sofa. Most people in the hospital had no idea about Nate's past. To them, he was simply the nice security guy. The one who held doors for patients. The one who pushed wheelchairs when nurses were overwhelmed. The one who brought a cup of water to a patient in the dead of night. No one asked who he used to be. And Nate never told. But tonight, everything would change forever. At the same time in downtown Nashville inside Roland Tower, the headquarters of Roland Tech Industries, 28th floor, CEO's office. Cassandra Roland sat behind a walnut desk facing 3 glowing computer monitors. Her hair was neatly tied back, her charcoal gray suit perfectly pressed without a wrinkle. On her wrist was an $85,000 Patek Philippe, 35 years old, self-made CEO, the youngest billionaire in Tennessee. Cassandra had built an entire tech empire with her own 2 hands, not with family money, not with mentorship, not with luck, only with a woman's razor-sharp intelligence, and a heart that had turned to stone long ago. Mitchell, Cassandra called through the intercom. Mitchell Barnes, 32, dressed in a crisp black suit, walked in with a tablet in hand. Yes, Miss Roland. Has the contract with Stellar Dynamics been signed? They're still hesitating over the compensation clause, ma'am. Cassandra frowned. Call them. Tell them if they don't sign within 24 hours, I'll move to another partner, and make sure they know that partner is their direct competitor. Mitchell nodded, typing quickly. Anything else, ma'am? A reporter from the Nashville Business Journal wants to interview you about your charity program. Decline. But this could be a good opportunity for I said decline. Mitchell, I don't do charity for praise. The Roland Foundation transfers money, stays quiet, and moves on. Is that clear? Yes, ma'am. Mitchell stood, then hesitated for a moment. Ma'am, are you planning to go home early tonight? It's already 11 p.m. Cassandra looked at him, her gaze sharp enough to cut glass. Mitchell, I pay you to work, not to worry about my sleep schedule. Mitchell lowered his head, murmuring, yes, my apologies. When Mitchell left the room, Cassandra leaned back slightly in her chair. She stared out through the large glass window where the Nashville skyline shimmered like an ocean of stars beneath her feet. But in this vast, luxurious, immaculate office, she felt nothing but emptiness. No family, no close friends, no one calling to ask, how was your day? Only work, contracts, business deals, and power. The very thing she had sacrificed her youth to chase. Cassandra stood up, slipped on her coat, grabbed her car keys. It was time to go home. She stepped into her private elevator, descended to the underground garage, and drove her navy blue Porsche 911 out into the night. The Nashville night was pitch black, the damp mist blurring her windshield. Cassandra drove toward the River North District where her luxurious penthouse was located, but her eyelids grew heavy. Last night, she had slept only 3 hours. Today, she had sat through 4 back-to-back meetings. Everything began to blur before her eyes. Then, a truck shot out of the intersection like a ghost. Cassandra slammed the brakes, but it was already too late. The collision ripped through the night. Metal twisted, glass shattered, the world spun, then sank into darkness. 11:47 p.m. The hospital radio at Nashville Memorial crackled urgently. Emergency inbound. Traffic collision at Cumberland Bridge. ETA 3 minutes. Female victim approximately 30 years old. Severe trauma. Dropping blood pressure. Nate was patrolling near the emergency bay. He heard the ambulance siren approaching from afar, sharp, cold, and familiar, like the clashing steel sounds from the battlefield. The automatic door slid open. 2 paramedics rushed in with a stretcher. On it was a long-haired woman, her clothes torn, blood smeared across her body. Female, 35, severe impact on the passenger side. Possible internal bleeding. Blood pressure 90/60. Dropping. Nurse Sophie Mallory ran out, her face draining of color. "Where's Dr. Hensley? He's stuck in traffic on I-40. He won't be here for another 10 minutes. Sophie stared at the monitor, her voice trembling. "We don't have that much time." Nate stepped forward. A jolt ran down his spine, the battlefield instinct snapping awake. "Let me help." Sophie turned to him, startled. "You're just a security guard. I know what I'm doing. Trust me." Without hesitation, Nate knelt beside Cassandra. He checked her pulse. Weak and rapid. Checked her airway. Strained but not blocked. Her arm was bleeding heavily and her ribs could be fractured. Cassandra's vision blurred. She could only make out a stranger. A man in an old security jacket, taking it off and placing it gently over her. "Please," she whispered. "Just make it fast. I don't want to hurt anymore." Nate looked straight into her eyes, his voice low and solid, forged like steel under fire. "Not tonight. You're going to see the sun rise. I promise." Something in that voice made Cassandra believe him without needing a reason. Nate got to work. He pressed down on the bleeding wound on her arm, slowing the blood loss, checked for shock, kept her conscious. "What's your name?" "Cassandra." Her breath faltered. "Cassandra. I'm Nate. You were in an accident, but you're going to be all right. The doctor is on his way right now. Just breathe with me. In and out." Every breath felt like a knife cutting through Cassandra's chest. But Nate's voice was the anchor tethering her to the edge of the abyss. "What do you do for a living?" "Why are you asking that?" "To keep you focused. Answer me." "CEO Roland Tech." Nate nodded, his hands never stopping. "A CEO, huh? Must be busy. Do you ever get any rest?" Cassandra tried to smile, but the pain twisted it away. "Rest is a waste of time." "Not always. Sometimes stopping is the only way to know how you're actually living." Her trembling hand searched for something to hold. Nate took it, squeezing gently. "I'm right here. You're not alone." The overhead light hit Nate's wrist, revealing faint tattooed numbers. 68W201. A combat medic code. "You were a soldier?" Cassandra asked weakly. Nate didn't answer. He simply continued working. 7 minutes later, though to Cassandra it felt like an entire lifetime. Dr. Travis Hensley burst in, hair fled from rushing. "What's?" He looked at the monitor. Blood pressure stabilized at 105/70. Heart rate more even. Bleeding controlled. "Who did this?" Sophie pointed at Nate. "Nate. He kept her stable until you got here." Dr. Hensley looked from Nate to Cassandra. "You just saved her life." Nate stood, stepping aside. "Just kept her stable, doctor. The rest is yours." As they wheeled the stretcher into the operating room, Cassandra turned her head, searching for him through the chaotic lights. Their eyes met. She mouthed something too faint to hear, but Nate understood. "Thank you." He gave a small nod, then turned and walked back into the shadows of the corridor, where he always belonged. Sophie ran after him. "Hey, why didn't you tell anyone you used to be a medic?" Nate just smiled softly. "No one asked, but I did what needed to be done, Sophie. Nothing more, nothing less. He walked toward the cafeteria where Sadie had fallen asleep on the table, coloring pencil still in hand. Nate placed a hand on her shoulder. "Sweetheart, Daddy's back." Sadie blinked awake, smiling sleepily. "Are you done with work, Daddy?" "Yeah, let's go home." "Are you tired?" "No, honey. I'm okay." Sadie pointed at the picture she had been drawing. A man in a superhero cape holding a first aid kit with a hospital behind him. "Look, Daddy, I drew you." Nate chuckled, ruffling her hair. "It's beautiful. I'll keep it safe." They walked to the parking lot. His old 2008 Honda Civic sat quietly under the yellow lights. Sadie climbed into the back seat, hugging her stuffed bear. Nate drove home, Cassandra's eyes still lingering in his mind. Fear. And then trust. He wondered, would she remember him? Probably not. People rarely remember the ones who saved them in a moment of chaos, and that was fine. He didn't do it to be remembered. But fate always has other plans. Sunlight slipped through the white curtains as gentle as if it were trying to wake someone who had just returned from the edge of life and death. Cassandra slowly opened her eyes. Her head throbbed as though someone had struck it with a hammer. Her body felt heavy as lead. Her arm was carefully bandaged. Every breath was a needle stabbing into her ribs. But she was alive. The window framed a radiant Nashville sunrise, a sweep of amber and gold stretching across the shimmering Cumberland River. A sentence suddenly echoed in her mind, clear and vivid, as if spoken again right beside her. "You're going to see the sunrise." That voice deep, warm, steady, and those hands that held her when she thought she had only seconds left before sinking into darkness. Cassandra pressed the nurse call button. Sophie Mallory walked in, offering a gentle smile. "Good morning, Miss Rowland. How are you feeling?" "Like I got run over by a truck," Cassandra rasped. Sophie laughed softly. "Well, technically you got hit by one, but you're lucky. It wasn't too severe. A few fractured ribs, some external injuries. You're going to make a full recovery." Cassandra studied her closely. "Last night, there was a man. He helped me before the doctor arrived." Sophie nodded instantly, her smile warming. "Oh, you mean Nate? He's wonderful. He kept you stable until Dr. Hensley got here. The doctor even said that without him things could have been much worse." "Nate, is he a doctor here?" Sophie chuckled lightly. "No, he's a night shift security guard." Cassandra froze. "A security guard?" "Yes, but he used to be a combat medic in the military. It's just not many people know." "Where is he now?" "He probably went home. His shift ends at 6 a.m. Cassandra sank back into her pillow. A security guard? The person who saved her life was a night shift security guard. A few hours later, the door burst open along with hurried footsteps. Mitchell Barnes rushed in, clutching his phone and tablet, panic all over his face. "Miss Rowland. Oh my God. Are you all right? I just heard." "I'm fine now. Mitchell, the board asked about you. Reporters have been calling too. Some of them found out about the accident and want to interview." Cassandra frowned. "What exactly do they know?" "Only that your car was involved in a traffic accident. No one else was identified." But Mitchell hesitated. "Some reporters are asking about the person who saved you." Silence. A heavy unspoken weight filled the room. Mitchell cleared his throat. "Would you like me to prepare a press release?" "I was thinking we could thank the hospital staff." "Yes, thank the medical team." She paused for a beat, then articulated each word. "Don't mention anyone by name." Mitchell nodded, scribbling rapidly. After he left, Cassandra lay still, eyes drifting toward the window. The bright morning light outside suddenly felt distant. Why did she feel uneasy? Restless, or was it shame? A stranger had kept her alive. A man whose face she hadn't even seen clearly. A night shift security guard. Cassandra wasn't used to this feeling. Wasn't used to owing anyone anything. But what unsettled her most was why his eyes wouldn't stop haunting her. That afternoon, Nate returned to the hospital for his night shift. He walked City into the cafeteria just like every day. "Daddy, I have a math test today." "Did you study?" "I did. I even memorized the multiplication table." Nate laughed, ruffling her hair. "Good job. I'm proud of you." They were just pulling out their chairs when Sophie Mallory came running toward them, breathless. "Nate, Miss Rowland wants to see you." Nate froze. "Is she all right?" "She's fine, but she asked about you this morning." "You should go up." "I think she wants to thank you." Nate shook his head immediately. "That's not necessary. I just did my job." "Nate, be serious. At least go say hello." He exhaled slowly. He hated attention, but refusing outright would be rude. "All right, sit here." "Okay, City. Daddy will be back soon." Nate stepped into the elevator and went straight to the 5th floor, the VIP ward. The hallway was silent, the lights soft, everything so elegant he felt like he didn't belong there. He knocked gently on the door of room 512. "Come in." Nate pushed the door open. Cassandra was sitting up in her hospital bed, wearing simple hospital clothes. Her hair was slightly messy, but her face had regained some color. When she saw him, her eyes flickered with surprise. "You're Nate, right?" "Yes." "How are you feeling, Ms. Rowland?" "Thanks to you," Cassandra replied curtly. An awkward silence dropped into the room. Cassandra had never been good at expressing gratitude. Nate wasn't used to receiving it either. "I want to thank you for last night." "It's nothing. I just did what needed to be done." "It wasn't just that," Cassandra said slowly. "I might not have survived if it weren't for you." Nate nodded politely. "You'll recover quickly. Dr. Hensley is excellent." Cassandra studied him more closely. There was something about this man. His humility, his calm, the way he expected nothing from her that stirred something inside her. People always wanted something from Cassandra. But he didn't. At that moment, Mitchell Barnes entered, juggling his phone and tablet. "Ms. Rowland, the PR office needs." "Oh." Mitchell looked at Nate, then at Cassandra. "This is Nate, the one who helped me last night." Cassandra introduced succinctly. Mitchell nodded, then leaned in and whispered loudly enough that Nate could hear every word. "Ms. Rowland. PR recommends not creating a story out of this. The media might exaggerate things." Cassandra paused. Then her expression shifted, the CEO mask snapping back into place. Cold, sharp, impenetrable. She looked at Nate. "I'm very grateful for what you did. But I think it's better if last night stays between us. I don't want rumors or unnecessary attention. You understand?" Nate stood still. His face didn't change, but something dimmed quietly in his eyes. "I had no intention of telling anyone, ma'am." "Good. I don't like owing people." The sentence hit like a thin, quiet blade, sharp, burning, and unexpected. Nate held her gaze for a second longer, and that look, calm, level, unwavering, made Cassandra feel small. Then he spoke in a voice steady enough to send a chill through the air. "Then don't owe me, ma'am. Just live better." Nate turned and walked out. The door closed behind him, softly, but heavy as stone, dropping into Cassandra's chest. Cassandra sat still, staring at the door. A strange feeling spread through her chest, uncomfortable, tight, as if someone were squeezing her heart. Just live better. His words echoed in her mind, sharp as a blade, yet aching with a sadness she couldn't explain. She clenched her hand. Why was she reacting this way? What had she done wrong? She had always handled everything the same way, quick, discreet, efficient, without complications. But deep down, Cassandra knew the truth. She had just treated the man who saved her life as if he were nothing but an inconvenience. That afternoon, Sophie found Nate in the staff break room. He was sitting alone, sipping cold coffee as if he were used to its bitterness. What she said was incredibly thoughtless, Sophie blurted the moment she saw him. Nate set his cup down. It's all right. All right. Sophie's eyes widened. You literally saved her life and she told you to stay quiet like you were a nuisance. Nate shook his head gently, his voice still calm. Sophie, everyone has their own way of dealing with feeling indebted. Some people are used to saying thank you. Others don't know how. It's not her fault. You are unreasonably kind to people who don't deserve it, Nate. Nate gave a thin smile. The kind of smile belonging to someone who had seen too much loss to hold on to resentment. Maybe, but doing something good doesn't require recognition. Sophie could only sigh, defeated by the excess gentleness of this man. Meanwhile, on the 5th floor, Cassandra sat alone on her pristine white hospital bed. Mitchell had gone to handle office matters. The room was spacious yet empty, its silence heavy as stone. She picked up her phone, then set it back down. She had no one to call, no family to check on her. Her parents had passed away years ago, no siblings, friends, just business partners wearing a friendly mask. Cassandra looked out the window. The afternoon light cast Nashville in a distant, unreachable glow. And Nate's voice echoed in her mind. Sometimes stopping is the only way to know how you're actually living. How was she living? A life full of power, full of success, but hollow enough to terrify her. Later that evening, just as Nate was about to leave the hospital, Sadie ran up to him, her eyes sparkling like fireflies. Daddy, did you hear the news? What news, sweetheart? My school. Roland Tech donated a whole new computer lab and everyone in my class got tablets. Nate froze in the hallway, staring at his daughter for a long moment. Roland Tech? Yeah, my teacher said they're a big sponsor. They help a lot of schools in Nashville. Nate glanced through the window toward the faraway Roland Tower. The sunset cast a soft orange glow on its glass panels, reflecting the fading sky. Maybe she wasn't as unkind as he thought. Maybe she was simply someone lost, someone who didn't know how to open her heart. Sadie tilted her head up at him. Daddy, do you think she's a good person? Nate looked at his daughter, this little girl with a heart big enough to believe in the goodness of everyone, and he smiled. I think she's trying. People show gratitude in different ways. Some with words, some with actions. Sadie nodded thoughtfully. I think both matter. Nate laughed. You're smarter than a lot of adults. They walked toward the parking lot. Sadie held his hand, skipping lightly as though the world had never been anything but safe. Nate didn't look back at the hospital. He had done his part, saved a life. That was enough. But deep inside, a quiet question lingered. Would she remember him once her wounds healed? Or would he remain a blurred face in the chaos of her memory? A month passed. Cassandra was discharged after only 3 days and returned to work as if nothing had happened. Meetings rolled in one after another. Deals large and small continued to pour onto her desk. On the outside, everything seemed back to its familiar rhythm. But inside, nothing was the same. Every night, Cassandra remembered Nate's deep, steady voice, the voice that pulled her back from the brink of death. She remembered the tattooed numbers on his wrist. Remembered the way he held her hand, calm and certain, making her believe she would live. And what bothered her most was the way she treated him afterward. Rude, cold, as if he were just some nameless employee. At the end of the month, Nashville Memorial held its annual charity gala. Main sponsor, the Rowland Foundation, Cassandra's Family Foundation, a grand polished event. Politicians, doctors, business leaders, reporters, everyone appeared beneath the dazzling lights. Nate was assigned to guard the main hall. His usual duties: check passes, monitor entrances, stand still, and become invisible. He leaned against the back wall, silently, observing the glittering gowns and expensive suits. Then she walked in. Cassandra Rowland in a stunning navy evening gown, entering like a beacon that drew every eye. She didn't see him, and she had no reason to. To her, he was just part of the background. The event began with speeches about health care initiatives, followed by donation announcements that sent waves of applause through the hall. Cassandra stepped onto the stage beneath bright lights and declared, "The Rowland Foundation is proud to donate $5 million to expand emergency care services." Thunderous applause. But then flashing lights. The fire alarm blared. The crowd buzzed in confusion, unsure whether to stay or flee. Then a scream sliced through the noise from the left side of the hall. Someone collapsed. "Please, we need a doctor." Panic spread like wildfire. Nate reacted instantly. He surged through the crowd fast and precise like a blade through butter. An elderly man about 70 lay stretched out on the floor, pale, motionless, his chest still. No one dared approach. Nate knelt beside him, checked the pulse. Nothing. Airway blocked. Without hesitation, he began CPR. 30 chest compressions, 2 rescue breaths, repeat. "Someone call 911. His voice rang out, strong and unwavering. The crowd held its breath. 30 seconds, 45 seconds. Then the old man coughed violently, jolting awake, eyes fluttering open. A wave of relief rippled across the hall. Medical staff rushed in to take over. Nate stood up, brushed off his pants, and clearly intended to retreat back into the shadows, the place he always chose. But this time, he felt a gaze fixed on him. Nate looked up. Cassandra stood at the edge of the stage, frozen. She had witnessed everything, the way he moved, the precision of every action, the calm he carried into chaos, and she understood immediately. This man was not just a night shift security guard. Mitchell leaned in and whispered urgently, "M. Rowland, we should." But Cassandra didn't hear him. She couldn't take her eyes off Nate, the man she once considered an inconvenience. After the gala, Cassandra could hardly sleep. She returned to her lofty penthouse, slipped out of her evening gown, and stepped into a steaming hot shower. But her mind spun relentlessly, unable to erase the image of the man standing in the chaos of the ballroom, bringing someone back to life right before her eyes. He wasn't an ordinary security guard. He couldn't be. Cassandra lay in bed, but her heart would not settle, as if being pulled toward one single point. That man. The next morning, Cassandra arrived at the office unusually early. Barely 5 minutes after sitting at her desk, she picked up the phone. "Get me connected with the HR department at Nashville Memorial." Just 30 minutes later, Cassandra was seated in a quiet hospital conference room. In front of her was a pale blue folder. She opened it and nearly forgot to breathe. Nathaniel Nate Carver, age 38. Position: night shift security officer. Background: combat medic, United States Army, 2009 to 2019. She turned to the next page. Awards: Silver Cross, Purple Heart, Army Combination Medal. Reason for discharge: family hardship, wife deceased, emergency contact. City: Carver, 8 years old. Cassandra's hand trembled as she looked at the photograph attached. Nate in uniform, younger, eyes sharp like forged steel, hardened by war. She flipped to another page, a scanned article from 2017. Combat medic saves 23 soldiers in attack. Awarded Silver Cross. The article described him sprinting through gunfire multiple times to drag wounded soldiers to safety, performing field surgery under bombardment, and refusing evacuation until the last man was airlifted out. Cassandra covered her mouth, her eyes stinging. A true hero, working night shift for $15 an hour. And she, the person he had saved, had told him to stay silent. The realization stabbed straight into her chest like an unexpected needle. Cassandra closed the folder, not because she was done, but because she couldn't bear another line. She stood up and walked out of the conference room, her heels striking sharply against the white hallway floor. She didn't know what she would do next. Only one thing was certain. She could no longer live as if that fateful night had never happened. She owed him far more than an apology. And this time she would not run from it. The next day, Cassandra called for an emergency press conference. No prior announcement, no prepared statements, no time for the PR team to react. The PR staff scrambled after her. "Ms. Rowland, we aren't prepared. What's the content of your statement?" Cassandra answered simply, "I don't need a script." The press room quickly filled to capacity. Flashing cameras, microphones pointed at the podium, attention thick as the air before a storm. Cassandra stepped up. No papers, no teleprompter, only her and the truth. She took a deep breath. "1 month ago, I was in a car accident. I nearly died." The entire room fell silent. The person who saved me wasn't a top surgeon, not an experienced nurse, not someone with authority or power. She paused, her voice trembling slightly. He was a single father working the night shift for $15 an hour, a man without full insurance. A man who brings his 8-year-old daughter to the hospital every night because he has no one else to watch her. Whispers rippled through the room. Cassandra tightened her fingers, then spoke with rising strength. "His name is Nathaniel Carver, and you deserve to know who he truly is." At that very moment, in the hospital cafeteria, Nate was sitting beside Sadie helping her review math problems. His phone buzzed. A message from Sophie. "Turn on the TV now." Nate frowned, then looked up at the wall-mounted television. His heart dropped on every news channel. Was Cassandra talking about him? Nathaniel Carver is a decorated combat medic. He served 3 deployments, saved dozens of soldiers under enemy fire, awarded the Silver Cross for exceptional bravery. A photo of Nate in uniform appeared on the screen behind Cassandra. Sadie gasped, shouting across the cafeteria. "Daddy, that's you." Nate sat frozen, unable to believe what he was seeing. Cassandra continued, her voice thick with emotion. "When I asked him to stay silent about saving me, I didn't know. I didn't know what he had sacrificed. I didn't know how much he had given." She looked directly into the camera. "Nathaniel Carver, if you are watching this, please stand up." The entire cafeteria turned toward Nate. Co-workers, nurses, patients, all waiting. Nate shook his head quietly. I don't need this." But Sadie grabbed his hand and tugged firmly. "Daddy, she's saying thank you." Nate looked at his daughter, her clear, proud eyes. Then he looked up at the screen. Cassandra was crying. "He reminded me that leadership isn't about power. It isn't about control. It is about service, about stepping up when no one is watching, about doing what's right, even when there is no reward." The press room erupted in applause. Cassandra wiped her tears, her voice breaking. "Nathaniel Carver is the kind of person this world needs more of, and I was too blind to see that." She bowed her head, stepping away from the podium. But then she turned back to the camera, whispering as if speaking to only one person. "I'm sorry." The cafeteria roared with applause. Someone placed a hand on Nate's shoulder. "You're a real hero, man." Sophie rushed over and hugged him tightly. "Now the whole world knows." Sadie threw her arms around him, smiling brighter than the hospital lights. "Daddy, you're famous." Nate stayed seated, quiet, watching Cassandra walk off stage. She walked away, but then paused and looked back at the camera one more time, her gaze searching for him across a distance neither of them could cross. Nate exhaled, a breath heavy yet strangely light, painful yet warm. Maybe some wounds can heal, some people can learn, and some heroes, even the ones who don't want the spotlight, sometimes need to be seen. After the press conference, Nate's phone wouldn't stop ringing. Calls from journalists, TV stations, interview invitations, private security firms offering shockingly high salaries, triple what he earned now. Nate declined every single one. Sophie nearly screamed. "Are you insane? They're offering $45 an hour." Nate just shook his head. "I never did this for money, Sophie. Think about Sadie. Her life could be so much better." Nate glanced down the hallway where his daughter usually sat waiting for him to finish his shift. "My daughter already has a good life. She has a father who's always there. That's what matters most." Sophie sighed, not because she disagreed, but because she understood nothing could shake Nate from what he believed. But 3 days after the press conference, another message arrived at the hospital, a cream-colored envelope with his name written on it. Nate opened it. Inside was a handwritten letter, each stroke familiar, steady, yet deeply sincere. "Dear Nate, I know you don't want attention. I understand that. But I also know you deserve more than what life is giving you now. The Roland Foundation would like to invite you to serve as our advisor for safety and medical preparedness. Part-time, flexible hours, excellent pay, and most importantly, you can still be with Sadie. If you agree, we can help even more people together." Cassandra Roland. Nate finished reading and gently folded the letter. Sophie stood beside him, holding her breath. "Are you going to accept?" "I need to think." That evening, in their modest one-bedroom apartment, Nate cooked dinner. Simple tomato pasta. Sada's favorite. The little girl sat on her chair, legs swinging, watching him with round, curious eyes. "Daddy, are you going to take the new job?" Nate blinked. "How did you know?" "I heard the nurses talking. They said Miss Cassandra wants to hire you." Nate sat down beside her. "What do you think I should do?" Sadie put down her fork and thought very seriously. The kind of seriousness only an 8-year-old with a heart larger than her tiny body could have. "You said helping people is the most important thing. Right. That's right. If you take this job, you'll help even more people, won't you?" "Yes." Sadie smiled and wrapped her arms around his neck. "Then you should take it. As long as you stay with me." Nate hugged her, his voice warm and steady. "I'll always be with you. I promise." The next morning, Nate stood outside the hospital parking lot, took a long grounding breath, then dialed the number on the small piece of paper. The voice on the other end answered, "Roland Foundation. How may I assist you?" Nate tightened his grip on the phone. "I accept." A week later, Cassandra returned to Nashville Memorial Hospital. Not for meetings, not to see the board. She came for one reason only, to see Nate. She found him in the small security office, the warm yellow light falling over the paperwork he was filling out. When Nate looked up, their eyes met, quiet, sharp, charged. Cassandra stood in the doorway. "May I come in?" "Come in." She stepped inside and gently closed the door behind her. No Mitchell, no assistants, just the two of them in a tiny room smelling of paper and cold coffee. A long silence stretched out as if both were waiting to see who would speak first. Then Cassandra said, her voice unexpectedly low and achingly sincere, I want to apologize to you. A real apology, not on camera, just one human being to another. Nate set his pen down. You already apologized on television. That was for the world. This is for you. Cassandra sat in the chair across from him, her fingers woven together. I was wrong about you. Completely wrong. I didn't see who you were. I only saw what I wanted to see. Nate looked directly at her. Why didn't you see? Cassandra was silent for a beat, then exhaled. Honesty so raw it almost trembled. Because my father taught me that showing weakness is dangerous. That if I owed someone, they would have power over me. So I built walls. I kept people away. I didn't let anyone close. Nate asked softly. And now I realize I trapped myself in a prison I built with my own hands. The room seemed to draw tighter around them. Cassandra lowered her head, her voice nearly breaking. You were right, Nate. I wasn't angry at you. I was angry at myself. Nate sighed, his voice warm but steady. I'm not angry with you, Cassandra. I just hope you understand that life isn't only about success. It's about the people you leave an impact on. Cassandra nodded, her eyes shimmering. Do you have family? A wife, a daughter? City, 8 years old. My wife died 5 years ago. I'm very sorry. It's all right. I have City. She's the reason I keep going. Cassandra looked at him, not with the gaze of a CEO, but of someone seeing a truth she had been too blind to recognize before. You've given up so much. Your career, your recognition, everything just to be with your daughter. Nate shook his head. I didn't give anything up. I chose what mattered most. City purpose. Back then, I saved lives because it was my duty. Now I do it out of love, and that makes all the difference. Cassandra tightened her hands together, his words pierced straight through her. I built an entire empire, she whispered. But no one truly needs me. Nate leaned forward slightly. Maybe it's time to change that. She looked at him, hope and fear tangled in her eyes. Do you think I can change? I think anyone can if they're willing. A piece of her wall crumbled. Cassandra stood. Next week, we'll begin working together. I want you to help me build a community health program. Not just financial aid, a place that truly helps people. Nate smiled. I'll do my best. As Cassandra reached for the doorknob, she paused, turned back to him, and said softly, Nate, thank you. Not just for saving my life, but for showing me who I really am. Nate replied gentle and clear. You saw that yourself, Cassandra. I just held up the mirror. The door opened, but perhaps the door inside Cassandra was the one that had finally swung wide. In the weeks that followed, Nate and Cassandra met nearly every day. They held meetings at the Rowland Foundation office, toured hospitals in low-income areas, and sketched out plans for the new community medical center. And throughout the process, they talked. Not the polite surface-level kind of talk, but real conversations between two people who were beginning to understand each other. One afternoon, they sat in a small cafe in East Nashville, a large map spread out between them, covered in marked areas. Cassandra pointed to a neighborhood in the outskirts. This area has a high density of veterans. We should prioritize it. Nate nodded. Many of them have PTSD. They need more than medical support. They need psychological care, too. Cassandra looked at Nate, hesitated, then asked, Do you have PTSD? Nate paused, thinking, then nodded slightly. A little, not severe. Sometimes loud noises startle me. Sometimes I have dreams. Are you getting treatment? For a while, yes. But the thing that helped me most was City. She gave me a reason to keep going. Cassandra fell quiet for a moment. How much do you love your daughter? Nate smiled, a softness she rarely saw in anyone. More than my own life. Cassandra lowered her gaze. I can't imagine what that feels like. You don't have children? No, I never thought I'd have time for something like that. Nate looked at her, his voice calm but deeply grounded. It's not about time, Cassandra. It's about priorities. The sentence struck directly at a place Cassandra had never dared look into. A few days later, during a meeting with the hospital board, Cassandra unexpectedly presented a proposal. Can we build a playroom for the employees' children? A safe place for kids during night shifts. The entire room froze. That's a wonderful idea, one board member said. But why so suddenly? Cassandra glanced toward Nate, who stood quietly in the corner. Because I know a little girl who has to sit in the cafeteria every night, waiting for her father to finish work, and no child should have to do that. Nate lowered his head, a small smile tugging at his lips. For the first time, she truly understood. Another afternoon, Cassandra appeared at the hospital unannounced. She found Nate in the small outdoor courtyard, a modest play area with a few benches, and a maple tree turning colors. And she saw Sadie. The girl was gently taping a bandage onto a younger child's scraped knee. There, Sadie said. Now you're all better. The younger child beamed. Thank you. Cassandra watched, her heart softening in an unfamiliar way. Nate stepped beside her. My daughter wants to be a nurse. She's always been like that. Cassandra smiled. She's very special. She is. Sadie noticed Cassandra and ran over, her eyes bright. Hi, are you Miss Cassandra? Cassandra crouched down to meet her eyes. Yes, that's me. And you must be Sadie. Yes, my dad talks about you. Cassandra laughed. What does he say? He says, you're learning how to be a better person. Cassandra froze, then let out a shaky laugh through sudden tears. Your dad is very wise. Sadie opened her little hand. Inside was a crayon drawing, a woman in a business suit, a man in a security uniform, and between them a big red heart. I made this for you because you helped my dad get a better job. Cassandra took the drawing with both hands, tears falling freely. Thank you. I'll keep it safe. Sadie threw her arms around Cassandra. And Cassandra, who had never quite known what to do with hugs, still hugged back tightly. When Sadie ran off to play again, Cassandra wiped her eyes and stood. Your daughter? She's wonderful. She likes you. Why? She doesn't know anything about me. Nate folded his arms, watching his daughter in the distance. Children see what adults try to hide. They see with their hearts. Cassandra turned to him, her voice trembling slightly. Do you think I have a heart? Nate looked at her as if he could see through every wall she'd ever built. I've always known you do. You just forgot where you put it? A month later, on a late evening, Cassandra and Nate were still sitting together in the Rowland Foundation office, reviewing the final details for the Ward Center plan. Cassandra set her pen down and exhaled. I think we should call it a night. It's already 10 o'clock. Nate looked up and noticed something different in the tiredness behind her eyes. You okay? Cassandra hesitated, her voice softening. Today is my father's birthday. He passed away 5 years ago. Nate nodded gently. I'm very sorry. It's fine. It's just that on days like this, I usually feel lonely. Cassandra looked straight at him, her eyes shimmering, but still trying to remain composed. Yes. She took a deep breath, then continued. I don't have siblings. My mother died early. My father raised me alone. And he taught me I had to be strong, independent, never rely on anyone. And now, Nate looked at her with quiet warmth. And now you're realizing that being strong doesn't mean being alone. Tears slipped down Cassandra's cheeks. Not dramatic, not loud, just honest. Without another word, Nate stood and grabbed his jacket. "Come with me." "Where?" "Trust me." 15 minutes later, they were standing on the Johnsegenthaler pedestrian bridge. Below them, the Cumberland River shimmered under golden lights. And in the distance, Nashville glowed quietly in its nighttime beauty. "I come here whenever my mind gets too heavy," Nate said, leaning against the railing. "This place reminds me that life keeps moving no matter what happens." Cassandra leaned gently against the rail beside him. "Do you feel lonely after your wife passed?" Nate looked down at the water. "Every day, but city helps me get back up. Work keeps me focused. And I remind myself that Emma wanted me to live. Truly live, not just exist." Cassandra turned to him. "How do you know that?" "Because the night before she died, we talked about the future. She said, if anything ever happens to me, promise me you'll keep loving, keep living." Cassandra swallowed hard. "She was lucky to have you." "No, I was the lucky one." They stood in silence for a while, the only sounds being the wind and the water beneath the bridge. After a moment, Cassandra asked quietly, "Nate, do you think I can learn not to be lonely anymore?" Nate turned to her, not answering immediately, just looking as if measuring the honesty inside her question. Finally, he said, "You've already started." Cassandra tilted her head slightly. "How can you tell?" "Because you're standing here with me, saying things you've never said to anyone. That's where change begins." Her tears glistened in the streetlight, but this time her smile was softer, lighter. "Thank you, Nate, for not leaving me. I never will." The night wind swept past them, cool, but no longer cold. Cassandra's fingers drifted slightly to the right on the railing. Nate's fingers shifted slightly to the left. They didn't hold hands, but their fingertips brushed. Just a feather-like touch, yet enough to make Cassandra's heart tighten. Something was changing, not rushed, not forced, just a real connection between two people who had grown used to living inside their own empty spaces. As they walked back, Cassandra realized something she hadn't felt in a very long time. Relief, safety, and she wasn't alone anymore. That evening, after returning from the bridge, Cassandra didn't turn on the TV, didn't open her laptop, didn't schedule a late-night meeting the way she always did. She quietly sat down at the small table by the penthouse window, a spot she had never once used, despite living there for years. The lights of Nashville reflected gently across the wooden surface, casting a soft glow she rarely allowed herself to sit with. Cassandra opened a box of stationery. She took out an old fountain pen, the last gift from her father before he passed away. Her hand trembled slightly. Then she began to write. "Dear Nate, I'm not good at saying thank you. You already know that. But tonight, I want to try. You saved me twice. Once from death and once from the person I had become. I don't know how to repay that. Maybe I will never know what is enough. But I am trying to become better for you, for city, for all the people I used to look past without ever truly seeing. Thank you for seeing me even when I couldn't see myself. Cassandra." She read it once more, slowly folded the letter, placed it into an envelope, and sealed it with great care, as though something fragile lay inside. The next morning, Cassandra left her penthouse earlier than usual. She stopped by Nashville Memorial Hospital and walked to the small security office where Nate worked. No knocking, no interruptions. She simply placed the envelope on his desk and walked away. When Nate arrived for his shift and saw the letter, he paused longer than usual. He opened the envelope and read each line, his brow softening, his eyes growing warm. A thin but genuine smile appeared on his face. He folded the letter carefully and slipped it into his chest pocket, right over his heart. Some thank yous never need to be spoken aloud. They just need to be felt. And Nate felt this one completely. A year passed. The Nashville morning was freezing, but clear as crystal. Roland Foundation was inaugurating the Ward Center for Community Healing, the first fully free medical facility in the region, offering health services, psychological therapy, and dedicated programs for veterans and their families. Hundreds of people stood at the gates: doctors, nurses, young families, the elderly, and veterans with sun-weathered faces and re-ined eyes. Cassandra stood on the stage dressed in a minimalist dark gray suit. No PC Philippi, no IC CEO aura. Today she was simply a person grateful to be alive. A year ago, Cassandra began, I almost lost everything. No one spoke. They just waited. And the person who saved me wasn't a famous doctor, wasn't a hospital executive. He was simply a good man. Her eyes searched for Nate, the man standing in the front row. Sitting beside him, her small hand clasping her father's. Nathaniel Carver, please come up here. Nate froze. Sitty nudged his shoulder. Go, Daddy. People need to hear you. Nate stepped onto the stage like someone completely unfamiliar with spotlights. He stood before the microphone, awkward. I'm not used to this. I'm more familiar with heart rates. The crowd burst into laughter, the tension lifting. But then Nate's voice grew serious. If there's one thing I've learned in my life, it's this. Healing isn't just for the wounded. It's for anyone who still cares enough to try healing others. He turned toward Cassandra. We all carry pain, scars, things left unsaid. The question is, what do we do with them? Build walls to hide or build bridges to reach one another? Cassandra inhaled deeply. Her hand trembled slightly. I choose bridges, Nate finished. And I hope all of us will choose the same. Applause rose, first scattered, then swelling like a wave. Sitty ran onto the stage holding a crayon drawing. In the drawing, Nate kneeling, placing his jacket over a woman. Between them was a giant glowing heart. The messy words read, Dad gives code to lady. Heart shines. The entire hall softened. Cassandra stepped forward, holding a small wooden box. She opened it. Inside was a simple yet breathtaking medal engraved with the words, Don't make it fast. Stay. Cassandra looked up, eyes shimmering. You told me I would see the sun rise. Since that night, I've seen thousands of new sunrises. Every one of them was because of you. She pinned the medal onto Nate's chest, her touch so gentle it was as if she feared hurting him. Then she spoke, not with the voice of a CEO, but of someone who had finally rediscovered her own heart. Don't disappear again, Nate. Don't go back into the shadows. The world needs people like you. I do too. Nate looked at her for a long moment. A full year, every layer of Cassandra's ice, every defense had melted into this single instant. I think, Nate said softly. Some pain is worth feeling. Cassandra laughed through her tears. It is completely. Everyone rose to their feet, cheering. The sound flooded the courtyard, but Nate only saw three things. Sitty beaming, proud of her father, the hero. Cassandra, finally free from the cold cage she built around herself. And the golden sunrise rising behind the stage, spilling light across Nashville like a new promise. A voiceover echoed through the speakers, closing the ceremony. True heroes never stop saving people. They just find new reasons to keep going. If you believe compassion is the quietest yet strongest kind of power, leave the comment sunrise below. And if this story touched your heart, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you won't miss the next healing story. Thank you for being here and see you in the next video.